Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Sansone. I'm a psychotherapist opposed to psychopathic authoritarianism. This is Mind Matters and Everything Else. My website is josephsansone.com. Today I have with us Lisa Miron. I got Steve and Jana here, and we're going to talk about the Noahide laws, which a lot of people do not know about. But before we jump into that, Steve and Jana, why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and then I'll bring Lisa in.
Okay, well,
And give and
thank
your
you.
give your Substack too, and anything else you want to give.
Okay, sure. Well, we are Steve and Jana Ben-Nun. We are known as Israeli News Live, and our name, Israeli News Live, is still from the time when we used to be Zionists. We were very hardcore Zionists. We were Christians, but we used to support Israel unconditionally. And at one point in time, we decided that we're going to go and make an aliyah and move to Israel. That's what we wanted to do. And while we were in Israel, in the middle of it all, we just decided not to pursue Aliyah anymore because when we lived there, we started to notice that things are not the same as we thought they are. So uh, we actually changed from being Zionists to be totally anti-Zionists right now. We are exposing what's happening with Israel, what is happening with Schofield style Christianity. And we are known as Israeli News Live and Ben-Nun Institute of Biblical Research. We cover news and we cover biblical teachings. My husband does cover biblical teachings. And I have Substack myself. I use my maiden name, Jana Sutova, Sutoova, on my Substack. So you can find me under that name. And my Substack is dedicated to expose the Noahide laws and defend Christian faith. My husband also has a Substack, so you can tell your Substack as well.
Yeah,
And I'll
Stephen
link to
Ben-Nun.
both of them below as well.
Sure.
Yeah, just under my name, Stephen Ben-Nun. And uh, the little bit about just as far as a brief background and everything, I was born to Jewish parents, but they were non-practicing. So that's one of the reasons why we went to Israel is because more of connecting to heritage is what it was, only to find out that it's not, it's more of an illusion. It's not what you think it is. And when you see the oppression of what goes on in the country, it begins to make you question a lot. And just slowly but surely, finding out that ISIS militants were Jewish in many
Yeah.
cases, being
Mhm.
connected to the Knesset, being connected to, different members in IDF and things like that. All the way up into the time of October the 7th, I was getting direct reports right out of Israel. It's an inside job, things like that. So it only strengthens the fact that we need to help people to understand what's really going on. It's not to say there's not good Jewish people in the world. It's just that there is a lot of bad things that are going on in the world. And so
Mhm.
I write because I do speak Hebrew. I do write from a more from the biblical aspect to try to help Christians understand where they've gone wrong on the Schofield ideology.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is technically considered to be heretical teachings. But Lisa, my audience is probably familiar with you, but go ahead and give your bio.
Hi, everybody, and it's a pleasure to see you again. Dr. Sansone, I've been on your podcast a couple times, and it's Steve and Jana. It's a blessing to get to know you through these through these terrible laws. I'm a lawyer of 26 years. I have a Bachelor of Science with a minor in chemistry, a Bachelor of Laws, then a Master's of Laws in Conflict of Interest. I had a varied career, including running a law firm in which I sued the government in the first SARS case, which got me really interested in following the COVID dynamics. I've been in-house in the auto and technology sectors. I've been writing a Substack, and I wrote a book, World on Mute. And when I wrote the book, I said, "Gee, these speech committees look like that they're going to replace our actual courts. And I described it as a 1B system. So when I stumbled on the Noahide laws, I saw that they could fit, tongue and groove or hand and glove into these speech committees. And then recently I did a podcast or a Substack, and it was Peter Hortez, and he gave the idea that uh, it was anti-Semitism to be anti-science or to be anti-vaccine. And so this idea was startling to me, but also fit into what I was learning through the book, in which Holocaust denialism was used sort of as a weapon against Dr. Sukti Bhakti, who was charged criminally in Germany for Holocaust denialism, and what he had actually done. He beat those charges. What he'd actually done was warn Israelis against the Vax Pass. And he compared it to the Star of David. And that comparison formed the basis of these charges. And so again, I'd leaned in because I thought, well, no, he was trying to prevent harm to Israelis, and he was trying to protect Israelis. And so how it was flipped and turned into a criminal charge. So I was willing to understand the Noahide laws for exactly how they were written as I discovered them. And then I'd reached out to Elizabeth Glass, who was exposing the Noahide laws. She ran for Senate in Albany, New York, during the COVID era, and she was trying to expose some terrible bills at the time. And through her, I met Jana and Steve, and I'm a follower of both their Substacks, and I also follow them on YouTube as well. Steve, I see a lot of your work there, and really appreciate everything that you're doing. And honestly, it's a blessing to be bringing this out to the world, because in so doing, we may change things. So that's really important. So Gan is the real expert on the Noahide laws.
Yes,
She's writing a
ma'am.
book, and so I thought maybe she could start with the basics, and then I can
Yeah.
delve into
So
some of how I tracked it.
quiet, Lisa. It's lawyerlisa.substack.com.
Yeah, that's right.
Lawyerlisa.substack. That's your Substack. All right. So yeah, what we're gonna do now is because what the issue is the broad categories of the Noahide laws seem benign, but then it's when you dig down into the subcategories where you get the problems. So yeah, Jana, why don't you run us through like the broad categories and then take us into the subcategories? I think Lisa
Sure.
might be having a tough time with her connection there.
Mhm. Well, yeah, you're absolutely correct on the fact that when you first hear of Noahide laws and you name them like what they are, the 7 laws, they seem very harmless and benign. And they seem like laws that Christians would have no problem with. So, number 1 law would be no idolatry. And the Christians do agree with not having idolatry in our religion. Then second law is no blasphemy. So another law that Christians are familiar with. Then it would be no theft, no murder, no adultery. Then there is that law number 6, which is kind of odd. It says, do not eat limb of a living animal. And 7th law is create justice or courts of justice to enforce the previous 6 laws. So when you hear those broad categories of laws, you really don't think there is any problem, because they seem to be biblical. Maybe one law is kind of odd. Do not eat limb of a living animal. Like that one might, Christians might question like what that would be, but the rest we agree with. But the problem with these laws come when you realize where they originate and then who has the power of interpretation. because the power of interpretation is actually given to the Jewish rabbis, Judaic rabbis, which consider themselves Pharisees, a continuation of Pharisees of old times. So, and also the origin of these laws is they're not biblical. Of course, we know about the 10 Commandments as Christians, but we never heard of 7 laws. So where does this idea come from? It's actually from Talmud. There are Talmudic laws. That's where they originated, and they were codified as a legal code for the non-Jews by Maimonides, which is like 12th or 13th century scholar, known also as Rambam. And he is very respected. His opinions, writings are quoted and respected in Judaic scholarship. And he's the one who codified Noahide laws as part of the Jewish law. So I would say that Noahide laws is basically, it's like a Judaism for Gentiles. And
But
yeah, go ahead.
the punishment for everybody to lean in, the punishment is decapitation. There's no prisons, and
Right.
and it's immediate upon judgment, the punishment. So it's not merely, oh, can we adhere to these laws? It's, do we want the judgment for any theft, right? Like, Jana, how small of a theft can it be?
Well, you're
Well,
right.
let's do this. Why don't we have Jana? Why don't you take us through the subcategories of what, and then we'll get into the penalties, just so people can get a feel for what we're talking about here. Does that make sense?
Sure. And understand, and Lisa, she's a lawyer, so she'll understand how problematic this is, because punishment and violation of any of the Noahide laws is decapitation. There's only one punishment. And only one form of punishment, and it is decapitation. So it's very strict. And it's not 7 laws. The 7 laws are broad categories, and each law has sub-laws, and that's where the problem comes in. Problem is in sub-laws, and there are over 100 sub-laws by now. And it's also open to interpretation, meaning that rabbis, they can add and remove as they wish. I mean, they have all the power of interpretation and control over these laws. So, for example, let's go to very first law, no idolatry. It's already a big problem, because idolatry in Judaism is defined very differently than idolatry in Christianity. And under Judaic law, worship of Christ is considered idolatry. So it's immediate decapitation for Christians. Christianity will not be tolerated in a form that we have it today. There are certain forms that people will be able to keep. And I would say it would be maybe like, if you're familiar with a Watchtower organization or Jehovah's Witnesses, where Jesus Christ is not really divine. He's not considered divine. He's not considered God in flesh. So Trinity is a problem. So any non-Trinitarian pseudo-Christianity could be tolerated. But Christianity will have to be completely redefined if the Noahide world wins, if we allow this to happen. Okay, so that's, first of all, very first problem immediately. And let's go to, for example, blasphemy, law of blasphemy. It's not only taking the name of God in vain or similar, blaspheming the name of God, but because in a Judaism, rabbis consider themselves representatives of God on earth. Any kind of bad-mouthing, gossip, or disagreement with Judaic rabbis will be considered blasphemy. So we won't be able to question Noahide laws, question Judaism, or we won't be able to defend Christianity, okay, if the Judaism wins here. So that's another example. Let's say a sub-law of theft. And, I'm only mentioning the ones that I can now remember by memory, but imagine there's many, many, okay? It's not like Jews, for example, if they steal anything, all they have to do under Judaic 613 laws is return whatever they stole, return it back, and maybe pay some interest or penalty to the injured party. When it comes to Gentiles, under Noahide laws, it's completely different. Gentile is immediately decapitated for any theft, even if he steals anything even worth less than a penny,
Mhm.
1 penny.
What
And
about adultery? They must have something for that, correct?
absolutely, and it's really bad for women, I would
That's where all
say.
the sub-laws come into
Yes,
play there. So
yes, it is a death if guilty of adultery, but it's mainly for women. Women can be, they will be kind of having much harsher laws than men. But then when it comes to men, for example, and if they have adultery with Gentile woman, there is a different law if they have adultery with a Jewish woman. So uh, they would be decapitated for adultery with a Jewish woman, not decapitated for adultery with Gentile woman. So they basically have all kinds of strange laws, and it's basically two-tier system. It's very unequal. And it comes from belief in Judaism that Jews are divine sparks, okay? They are divine souls. They're higher souls. Their souls originate in much higher spheres, and Gentile souls originate in satanic spheres. And so that's where it comes from.
And so there's an overall, is there an overall effort to kill non-Jews, even outside of that, or like in order to help facilitate their soul's development, or is it just when you break the rules?
Only when you break the rules, this
Okay,
is when. Now they have all kinds of laws, like in a time of peace and a time of war, for
gotcha.
example.
Okay, so
Uh,
question, Jana. So I'm hearing this and people listen to this be like, all right, but the Catholic Church probably had some crazy rules during Inquisition and that type of thing. And probably most Jews have never heard of the Noahide laws any more than most Christians have. But so I haven't seen people being decapitated or anything like that. So tell us why this is relevant now.
yes, and it's a very fair question, because a lot of people say, well, especially in the United States, we have a constitution that will never happen. These are silly religious laws.
We have a
So,
constitution. You sure we have a constitution? It's debatable.
right,
Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I heard people say that,
Yeah.
but
I,
I
I heard we
understand
have
about
one too.
this.
I'm still trying to wait to see if they follow it. But okay, yeah, continue, please.
Right. Well, and you're correct. I would not be afraid of these laws at all. I wouldn't even mention them or give them 1 minute of my time if that were just some sort of Judaic laws that they speak about in their synagogues, or would they believe that Gentiles have to follow laws. So what? You can believe whatever you want. Doesn't mean that this is the reality, right? But they kind of cross the red line.
How
And
so?
how? Because the main organization responsible for proselyting of these laws is a Chabad organization, and I consider them personally head of the snake in this situation. They are in the governments of the world in over 100 countries. They send their proselytes all over. They send families, husband and wife and children, and then their role is to proselyte and get into the governments. Okay, so, and they're in United States government, and under pressure of these Chabad Jews, our own presidents in United
Chabad, is
States,
that what
not
it's called?
only.
Chabad is the sect?
Yes, the sect is
Okay.
it's specific.
Chabad.
It's Chabad. Yes, it's a
How do you spell
Hasidic
that?
sect.
you got to put a little huh to it.
It's a CHABAD, Chabad.
Okay.
Yes, it's a Chabad Lubavitch, movement.
So
They originated in Russia.
what I'm hearing right now is this is not just like an arcane medieval Judaic teachings. What I'm hearing right now is even though it's a small sect of Judaism, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a very powerful sect of Judaism that's actually trying to implement this insanity. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, they actually persuaded our presidents not only sign proclamations that our nation, United States, was built on Noahide law principles, but it is already in Public Law 10214. And it was President Bush in 1991 that made it a public law. And that
Mhm.
public law kind of every year has to be renewed, right? Because it expires after 1 year. So since 1991, every single president, whether Democrat or Republican, they both sides re-signed this Education Day USA. That's the cover. And if
And
you
I
read
want
the
to, I'm going
small
to bring it
print,
right, I'm going to bring it right back to you two. But Lisa, what does that mean legally that the president signed? Like, what is the actual legal impact? I mean, I know you're from Canada, but what do you see as the legal
Yeah.
impact of them?
Is it okay if I share my screen, Dr.
No, you're not
Sansone?
allowed to. Yeah, go ahead. Did I have to
Yeah.
set that up or did we already do it?
I have to send a request,
All right.
and
Go ahead, but I want to bring it right back to her. I just want you to explain the legal side of this right now, and
I'm
then we'll bring
just
it back.
gonna be some viewers are actually visual people. So I thought I'm going to show you what was passed in your own law. And it's correct. Education and Sharing Day Proclamation was passed as a resolution 104 in 1991. And it refers to the Noahide laws as the ethical values and principles which are the basis of civilized society and upon which our great nation was founded. So it's, arguably, they're trying to say it precedes the Constitution itself because it's the reason, it's the ethical values that it was founded. They designated the Education Day USA. It was introduced by a Republican, and it came out of the House Post Office and Civil Service discharge. The committee actually was on population, which I think is really interesting because population activities um, in my book end up being all the activities that reduce population. So it came out of a subcommittee on census and population, and it refers to the Noahide laws. And I'm going to stop sharing now. The fact is, a lot of very important public laws have formed the basis for action against Americans before. It is a decapitation of Christians, and it sets up a slavery law.
Lisa,
Essentially,
what is the legal, are these proclamations more symbolic at this point, and then they're going to follow up with other like for instance in Florida, they're trying to pass a law that's being lobbied for by Centibrite, which is an Israeli intelligence company, and this is creating a counterintelligence agency in Florida that can target you for your speech and actually follow patterns in life and really a paramilitary thing. Like I would argue they could even target you for assassination. But like are like in other words, what's the teeth of the actual proclamations that are passed, or are they just symbolic to set up
they're not,
follow-up
I would
laws?
not say that they are symbolic whatsoever. They allow
Okay.
for activities. It's a broadly written law, but not only that, this Institute of Noahide Code is an NGO at the UN, and
Mhm.
they indicate that they have been writing our laws around the world on a broad number of topics, aging, criminal justice, disabled persons, education, HIV, human rights, humanitarian affairs, indigenous peoples, gender issues, advocacy, population. I'm not even reading them all. Conflict, social development, international. They describe the post 2030 agenda. Everybody knows the 2021 agenda, Agenda 21, I should say, the 2030 agenda. this has been described as the post 2030 agenda at the UN. Moreover, they've been writing the laws around the world since 2006. Okay, so the Noahide Code is the basis, but they're getting their powers through a vast amount of laws that, it should be incumbent on anybody who does FOIs. Who's meeting up with the Institute of Noahide Code? What laws have been set out? I've been looking at the laws in Canada and Bill C9, which I believe is a Noahide code as well. Th there Because the Noahide laws require absolutely no warning, zero warning for the institution. That the fact that it's been sitting there and every president and now every state has instituted the Noahide laws, right? And then
Yes.
all it needs is the Sanhedrin. And right now we know that they are training Noahide judges in the US that are trained and affirmed by 3 rabbis in Israel at a time. So there's the Noahide movement in terms of a religious movement. That's, really big in the Philippines. It's really big in Texas. So there's that component. But the legal component is silent. So everybody's saying, beware of Sharia law, and nobody's talking about Noahide laws. And nowhere is Sharia law being instituted by your governors or by your presidents, right?
No, if
Right.
anything, it's
Right.
more on the bottom up in localities they're trying to do it. But so basically, these proclamations are creating a contextual framework, and then they're going out and they're actually writing the lesser laws that are more specific. And so, for people who don't know, Bill C9, it's basically an anti-free speech law, and literally the way you're interpreting it, and then some others is that it criminalizes Christianity and even the crucifix as a hate symbol, and could even carry capital punishment in law. We've gone through that before, but just for
Yeah.
people that didn't see that, they can look at our prior interview for that. This is it's just a interesting phenomenon how it's being so widely spread, and it's basically I guess it's being tolerated because of the Schofield heresies. Um, Steve, how does this play into, or does this play, because you're our Israeli expert, I guess, how does this play into what's going on right now with Iran and Israel, or does it?
Well, it does. One thing, though, I would like to do real quick, because when you were asking a moment ago about the size of Chabad organization,
Uh,
I actually was part of that organization for 20 years. So there are almost close to 6,000 chapters in over 100 countries around the world. They
wow.
are the single largest Jewish educational institute in the world. There's no other politically activated, motivated organization more um, put together better than what the Chabad organization is.
So, Steve,
Um,
when people go to these Chabad events, because I think down here, Um, who's that low life? Oh, Byron Donald. He's running for governor down here in Florida. I think he just went to like a Chabad event in Central Florida. Now, does that idiot even have any idea what they are about, or is he just going there to get money and
it,
like?
it depends. I'm very familiar with most of the rabbis out of South Florida anyway, all the way from Fort Myers all the way over to Miami. And they're very well connected. They're very well connected with all the Christian organizations. John Hagee does the Night to Honor Israel. That's in cooperation with the Chabad rabbis, part of the educational branch of getting that unconditional support for Israel. But Israel is just being used at this. I'm sorry, Christians are just being used to further that cause. But main thing I want to do is look at the scope. Also, too, when Hitler was in power, that was the only group that he actually protected. There was a
Explain that. Explain that, because that would be shocking to people, I think.
Yes, there was actually there was an article that I seen not too long ago that came out, and it showed a group of and it was actually from the what they call the
Schneers.
Rebbe's family, Schneerson's family. So it's, when Schneerson was a boy, they were being they gave them first class seating on the train. They were taking them where were they at? Were they in Belarus or
Yeah,
something like
Belarus.
that? They
Mhm.
were taking them. They took them to Germany and Hitler give them safe passage. I think it was to Denmark, and then from there they went to the United States. And people were shocked. How could these Orthodox Jews be on a first class train? And he wanted to carry his entire library, which the Germans actually told him that they did not have the room because he had such a massive library that he wanted to take with him that he couldn't do that. But they guaranteed them their safe passage to the United States, which is something that most people don't even know about. So it lets you know that political connection. There's always that political connection. Now, when it comes to Iran, there's a couple of things that I think that is interesting about that. Israel 365 had came out with an article on, I think it was on January the 6th, is either the 16th or the 18th of this year. And they were calling for the Iranian people to overthrow their government and to accept the Noahide laws, as they said, that were incumbent upon all Gentiles. And then they requested them to help rebuild the third temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. It actually states it just like that in Jerusalem, as it was mandated by Cyrus. And I mean that kind of blew me away because like a year ago, I had done a video and I was looking at the book of Daniel, chapter 725. And I'm just saying this is a conjecture because I didn't know what to think of it, but that's written in Aramaic. And I do understand that language as well because it's very similar to the Hebrew language. And when I do biblical Hebrew, I do understand a little bit of modern Hebrew as well, but mainly biblical Hebrew. And I'm sitting there looking, and it doesn't say, when it says they think they can change the times in the law, it's not the word law, it's not Torah, it's a Persian word. It's called dat, which means decree. And Daniel and Esther are the only two places you'll find this word. And I realized, at least my thought is, and it's not he specifically, it could be he or they. It can be either way. It's very neutral the way the wording was done on that particular passage there in Aramaic. And so I realized, and so I did the video a year before this came out, and I said, someone is going to declare, or some group is going to declare that Iran needs to carry out the mandate of rebuilding the temple on the Temple Mount. And I said, I believe I think I'm accurate in saying that because it was like a future event that's supposed to still happen. And then oddly enough, the Sanhedrin now was following that very act. Now, whether or not it's got anything to do with anything or not, I don't know, but I just think it's kind of odd that at that time that happens. And of course, they're over there trying to kill everybody off.
Well,
Even
I mean,
Donald
you
Trump had
have a
made that
lot
weird.
of, I was just gonna say you have a lot of I'm gonna be nice. A lot of fanatical beliefs right now. You got Pete Hegseth and and they're talking about in the military telling them that God chose Trump to bring about Armageddon, and then you got the Jewish fanatics want so you want the Christian fanatics think they can bring Jesus back, and the Jewish fanatics think their Messiah will come, and it's all kind of it's a little nutty, I think, when you're blowing people up left and right. But yeah, I just want people to understand too, like there are like 8 different forms of Zionism, but I think usually when we're critical of Zionism, we're kind of talking about that nationalist form of Zionism, which is kind of pretty much promoting racial and cultural supremacy. Obviously, every Jew is not a Zionist. I know plenty of Jews that are not Zionists, and every Christian is not a Zionist either. But in the United States, most Zionists are actually Christians because it's a larger segment of our population than Jews are. And I think it's something that you kind of, and I know that both Zionists and anti-Semites deliberately conflate Judaism with Zionism. And I think they're both doing it on purpose for their own like selfish ends. And I think it's just important to show that distinction because obviously every Jewish person is a Zionist, just like every person of whatever group isn't, whatever. But we are pretty much talking about a belief in racial and cultural supremacy, right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what it really comes down to.
Especially when we talk about Chabad organization, which they're heading this whole thing, and they're heading this messianic movement. We want Moshiach now,
Right.
and a problem with that is that our President Trump is in cahoots basically with them.
Yeah.
I mean, he
And
went
guys,
to the
explain the Temple Mount thing for people that don't understand why that is a big problem.
Temple Mount.
Well, okay, the Temple Mount, of course, we
Like
have the Dome of
how
the
all the
Rock.
religions kind of converged and why it would be a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where the biggest problem is. Jordan supposedly has hegemony over that, but since Netanyahu's new government is in there, they're trying to strip Jordan of that right. Oddly enough, the Dome of the Rock was actually built for the Jewish people, believe it or not. The guy that built it, he was Muslim, but he felt like that they would come home one day, and he wanted to build them a house to pray in. But it doesn't work out that way, and of course they hate each other and want to kill each other, But I really I will say this though, the Temple Mount, there has been talk about building the temple beside the Dome of the Rock. That's what Yehuda Glick has kind of advocated for. And he's tried to get support from the Turkish Muslims to be able to do that. But nonetheless, it's a very sacred spot for the Muslim people around the world. I think it's considered the third most sacred spot for them. And so the removal of it or building even the Jewish temple beside it becomes a major problem. And
And
I think it's more so.
the reason the Jews, not all Jews obviously, but the reason the Jews don't want to do this, they want to rebuild the Temple Mount, rebuild the temple, is because they believe the Messiah will come, and then the Christian Zionists believe Jesus will return, correct?
Yes.
Well,
So
yeah, the Christians think that when the temple is built, that then the Antichrist will stand
Yeah.
inside of it, and that's when Jesus is supposed to come. There's all kinds of crazy ideas that are out there, and exactly, the Jewish people believe that they have to build the temple because the Messiah is supposed to come.
Mhm.
So there's a,
So,
when I was researching
Yeah,
the
go ahead, Lisa.
Noahide laws, and I'm putting it also in partly in a book that I'm doing called The End of the Decentralized Womb, and obliquely it had to deal with Adam Cadman, who is the guy in the Garden of Eden before Eve's rib comes out, and he's transgender. He's a hermaphrodite. He's an androgyne, and he's sort of worshipped by the Kabbalah and the Zohar, etc. So I ended up going in pretty deep. One of the things that Kabbalists, Lurian Kabbalists believe is that at the Big Bang, the creation of the four worlds, there were pure divine souls created. And then the Kelly pot. The Kelly pot are the husks of the souls that are non-Jewish. And in the Messianic era, and this is Chabad, and this is right from their websites, and I've done lots of substacks on this. It requires the elimination of all the bad Kelly pot. So there is that. Now, my Maimonides, and I'm just going to share my screen because it, the, creating the Messiah is what we're talking about. We're not talking about God providing a Messiah. They believe now that they have only 13 and a half years left, or their timeline is gone. Okay, so he wrote the Mishnah
And
Torah.
what does that mean? Their timeline is gone, Lisa. They got to wait another 1,000 years or something.
No, so they believe that it's the year 5,500 and I think 84 right now. And 200 years prior to the year 6,000 is the period in which the Messiah is to arrive. So
Okay.
the Ramban wrote this thing called the Laws of Kings and Wars. It is the most important document because it is both how they get to make a man become a a Messiah. They make a man a Messiah so long as he satisfies a few things. Okay, and one of them is the Noahide laws. Okay, and they make a man a Messiah, but they have to do it in the next 13 years because Then peace arrives, and peace is by the sword because no one disagrees with them. It's funny because the Muslims have Sharia law, but then you can become a Muslim and you're at the same level. In the Noahide laws, you're a tribute, you're a servant, and you have to pay with your body and your soul, kind of thing, your money, everything. And so the Noahide laws are a universal religion, but you are of a secondary status. Okay. And so it's a universal peace through the decapitation of all opponents. And the thing about the Noahide laws, when you read the laws of kings and wars, and everybody should know this because it's how they describe war to take place. 7 countries are Amalek, and Amalek is considered Rome, and Rome is considered the USA, and everywhere Christianity went is Amalek. Those are wars of mitzvah that the king Messiah, when they declare one, must do. They must get rid of that. They must get rid of their books. They must get rid of their places of worship. Churches must burn. You have to see that. In fact, and I'll just toggle over this and I'll drop this. This video here indicates that there's a universal religion and that no mosque and no church can survive the Noahide laws. They're being very brazen because I think they believe they're very close to having everything in place to be able to bring this forth. And then the courts, they're commanded to establish these courts. And this is why the Noahide courts are going to eclipse our courts. And Elizabeth Glass tracked all the judges in the US, hundreds of them that are dying of odd accidents, poisonings, weird murders, drownings.
Lisa, get rid of the screen because we're just looking at the same screen there. I don't think we're seeing what you think we're seeing. But just
Oh
explain
dear.
it. Yeah, yeah,
What are
just
you
explain
seeing?
We don't have that much time. Just
Okay.
explain it. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
look at the screen. So
We'll just look at you hiding in the dark there. Yeah, explain it.
that's okay. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
So the Mishnah Torah was written in 1490, but there is Maimonides is in, or the Rambam, that's what he's called. He was put into Congress, okay? And when they placed his picture or his relief in Congress, they indicated that he formed the basis for American law. And so people have to understand.
When was he put into Congress? His
1949
gotcha.
in the House chamber, and I will now try to share the proper screen so that you can see a picture of him. He's in Congress. What do you see? Do you just see a black screen, or do you see?
I'm seeing significance, creation.
Okay, do you see architect capital? Do
There's
you
like
see
a little
this?
green screen open there. 28 inches.
Honestly,
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not
honestly,
showing right. Yeah, don't worry about it. Just explain it. It's okay.
I'm very,
Because we're
very
gonna bounce
sorry.
around a little bit here anyway. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the these laws have been set into place internationally. They are ready, and people know nothing about them. They require decapitation. In Canada, during COVID, there was a purchase order request for mechanical or automatic or special guillotines. Okay. And it got outed in Parliament that this.
I just got to point out, by the way, that was, if my memory serves me correct, that was actually thing when Obama was president. They had some weird order on guillotines or something. It was in one of the budgets. Everybody was like, "What the hell is that?" And so that's just. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, it said the purchase order actually said that they needed to have these guillotines, these specialized guillotines to deal with COVID-19. And so when that came out, the official story was no, they're paper cutting guillotines, which is absolutely ridiculous. Why do you need all this money spent on paper cutting guillotines to save lives? And so how does cutting paper save lives, right? So this cover story was put through. And now we're building, in the US, you're building, the Department of Homeland Security is building all kinds of ICE detention centers, right? And Brighteon covered that the ICE detention centers are going to have biological waste incinerators with them. And I personally believe and just to finish that thought before I jump, uh, the Department of Homeland Security's also is in control of the bird flu plan for all of North America, Mexico, Canada, and the US. So the massive build out, if you were just building out these detention centers, um, why would they need to be in the middle of your country, right? There's like four or
Mhm.
five in Pennsylvania being built. And, why aren't you just shipping out your illegal migrants if that's the whole plan for them? And so the continuity of Department of Homeland Security's both for the building out of the detention centers and then for the bird flu, I think is interesting. And then Canada, we have medical assistance in death. And what we're having is a gross amount of organ donation. And I've got a post coming. The 3 drugs we give, none of them are pain relieving drugs. And the definition of circulatory death allows you to be alive while they take out your organs. So death by the sword, which is the requirement of Noahide laws, you die by the scalpel, right? You die by the scalpel because your organs get donated and you're alive when that happens and it gets cut out. So you're paralyzed and you can't do anything about it, but it fits with the Noahide laws. So you have to imagine that this is such an evil thing that is hiding and we can't name it and we're not allowed to talk about it. And the new hate laws, you know, uh, you can't talk about any kind of scheme. Well, so what do we say? We say the Noahide Institute is moving. We have the Noahide Institute. We have Chabad moving. We have these laws being set out. And every year, the US president
This,
is affirming them
so
every
this
year.
this just to bring us full circle, this is again like this law in Florida that's moving forward right now. Hopefully, hopefully it gets stalled in committee, but I wrote about it the other day. This law is literally targeting, creating a counterintelligence agency to target people for basically viewpoints that, and in the article, I have the parts of it and I have the whole bill there, basically viewpoints that the government deems to be dangerous or, counter to what their intentions are. And it uses words like using tradecraft and, basically, if you really read the bill, it's so broad that I believe it actually allows them to torture you, detain you, and even kill you. And certainly, any kind of speech critical to Israel would probably be counter to whatever they're saying, because again, this is being lobbied for. I believe the sole lobbyist for it is Cenebrite, which is the Israeli spy firm. So they're definitely doing this now. I have a question. Now, Stephen, Yana, do you have the same perspective that Lisa's having here? That this is in fact like an attempt to globally implement this? Do you see that too? Have you looked into that, or are you guys all in agreement
Yes.
on this? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely we are in agreement with this. And it's being advertised as universal ethics right now. They're not
Okay.
speaking about Noahide laws as legal system. Uh, this is basically Jewish way of um, deception. They
So
they do
Steve,
things slowly,
right,
gradually, and they
I
don't
get
tell
it.
you the full truth.
Steve,
Okay.
why aren't more Jews speaking out against this? Because I would think that most Jews would probably find this abhorrent, or am I wrong? I don't understand. Why aren't they speaking out? Do they not
When you
know
get
about it?
into when you get into Reform Judaism, they don't believe that anyone would ever carry out such laws to begin with. And that's where the problem comes in. I mean, I have watched too many just even articles and things that other Jewish people have written. And when the subject is brought up, they say, well, yeah, it does say that in the Talmud, but we've never done anything like that. The Jewish people are not going to do that. Or you'll hear the other thing come back from different, Zionist preachers or Zion or even mostly Zionist preachers. They say, well, the Jews would never kill anybody. And I said, well, I actually agree with you because, it'll just be, put off to the Gentiles because that's what the Noahide law requires the Gentiles to do
The
the
courts.
execution.
Yeah.
Not the Jewish people are not going to do it. It's the Gentiles that have to do it themselves.
There is a
Right.
Noahide Academy in Israel that trains now Noahide judges and teachers. And they're inviting lawyers and judges specifically and giving them 3-year education. And they're graduating with a Noahide judge degree. And
And
they're basically preparing an infrastructure for Noahide system worldwide. They're planning for Noahide system to be the new world religion, approved religion. They're planning of dismantling United Nations and moving it to Jerusalem, just like embassy was moved to Jerusalem.
Right.
And a lot of countries like a litmus test, like Venezuela, for example, when they brought Maduro here, the woman that was supposed to take over, she was already saying that she's going to be pro-Israel and bring the embassy to Jerusalem. And a lot of countries are slowly bringing their embassies. That's because they're working on Sanhedrin being legalized 100% and recognized.
And
So
Netanyahu just wasn't it with the Palestinians he was calling the Amalek, like literally
yes,
was
yeah,
it well, yeah, justifying like using the Old Testament biblical part where it almost like justifies genocide. So I mean, you've got some
Exactly.
fanatical people right now. I don't know if he really believes it or he's just using that to manipulate people, and I don't know if he's really
well,
religious or
no,
not.
he does.
This was used to give the soldiers a purpose and a reason and not to spare anyone while they were there in Gaza, quote unquote looking for Hamas. And at the same time, I blame Netanyahu and the government. I mean, I lived there. I went through a suicide bombing. I know how fast Israel can respond to any kind of catastrophe in the nation. And to think that 6 hours, minimum 6 hours, stand down, it
Come
doesn't
on, you don't think the
happen.
flying monkeys on the lawn chairs, like in the Wizard of Oz, you don't think they broke through I mean, come on. I mean, how long does it take for an Apache helicopter to go there and just gun them all down?
Two
Like
minutes.
that was so
2 minutes.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, Rabbi Mizrahi was part of the Israeli Air Force before. He even said it's an inside job. He
Right.
said, look, he said, I know. He says, a mouse touches the fence and we have 20 Jeeps at the fence. He says, but if there's an attack within 2 minutes, the helicopter is already engaging the target. And it's true. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I know how it works.
Right. That was Israel's version of a false flag, like the September 11th attacks on the trade towers were for the U.S.
Exactly.
For people to think that they won't sacrifice their own people, they did it here, so why wouldn't they do it there? I mean, we're dealing
All
with
they have to, all you have to do is read the book by Moshe Schoenfeld. He's a rabbi from the World War II. He wrote the book Holocaust Victims Accused. He uses the court documented evidence that 835,000 Hungarian Jews were sent to the death when they could have saved them. And then when they went to trial over it, they said we needed blood on the table so we could have a part in the partition of a state for the future people of Israel. They'll get over it. Most of them were old anyway, and it won't really matter. That's documented.
Or
so
you
is
can
the
read
I'll
the
get you one
transfer
second, Lisa.
agreement.
I'll get you 1 second, Lisa. Are Jews being quiet about this? One, because they think it's ridiculous, and two, are they afraid, or like what's the deal? Is it they just think it's so out there?
Well, there are though a lot of Jewish people that are coming forward that have written and are trying to wake up the world. But you know how it is when it comes to mainstream media, they're not going to let those Jewish people
This
be heard.
right. No, the
And
censorship. So I think because I think it's really important for I think it's important for Jewish people to speak out about this.
Yes, very much.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
just like any group, any religion, if you got like this fanatical sect, you need to push back on them, and or any ethnicity, if you have like these, racist or whatever, of any group, I think other people in that group, I think, need to speak out against it. I think that has power. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, so we were talking before the training of the judges. They are going after the American police to become judges. They are going after firefighters. They're going after people in the civil service and training those. And then during
You
the
mean they're training the police and the Noahide laws, or you mean they're training them
correct,
to be actually be judges too?
yeah, to be judges, to become judges, and to recruit in when they're discussing this because they do it online and they post it. And so you can watch it. And when they do that, they talk about the recruitment process. Okay, so you're going to go and you're going to recruit other police and firefighters. Then, additionally, everybody knows the Masons. Well, the Scottish Rite 21st degree is called the Noahide degree. And so you have this, you become a Noahide through the Masonic lodges. And sort of that infiltration came in around 1666 into the Masonic area. But then the next degree after that is the degree of the axe, like the sword. Right. And so you have the implication, I'm not a Mason, but the implication is you become a Noahide, then you become the executioner in the Masonic lodges, within the Masonic lodges. I can't confirm that. I can confirm that the 21st degree is the Noahide degree. I can confirm that the 22nd degree is the degree of the axe. I do not know what the training is or what is being involved, but this whole system, we're at its apex. We're at its total apex. And I am going to succeed in sharing something here.
We're not gonna have time, Lisa. Pull back,
I'm
please.
just going to
We're
show you the title of it. I'm just going to show
okay.
you the title of it. Because for everybody who needs to know what's going on in the war, in the Noahide laws, what is constituted an Amalek, and
Are
how
you
they can
guys seeing half of it too, or is that just me?
No, it's only half.
it's only half,
Yeah.
but Laws of
Okay.
Kings and Wars, yes,
Okay, so this is the laws of kings and wars. Okay, it'll be dropped in there. It's the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. It says three things that you must learn about what are the Amalek, why you have to kill them all. And they say extirpate them. Okay, so and it talks about how they conduct wars. So it explains what you're seeing. You got to look at that. The
Okay.
second thing is it talks about how you declare a man to become the Messiah king. You declare him king, right? And what he has to do is, and then third, what is the Noahide laws? And I'll tell you, one of the things in there that the Rambam wrote was that the king cannot have a lot of silver or gold, right? Because the Torah, the original, I say the Torah, the Old Testament has him coming in as a prophecy on a donkey. He's poor. So my theory is the reason why we are going to digital ID, digital central bank digital currency, is then Israel and the king can have all the money in the world and not violate the requirements set out. When you look at that document and you apply it to what you're seeing, it explains almost everything. It's a frightening document for you to look at, but I'm going to drop it in there, and
Yeah,
that's
give
all
it to
I
me
wanted
and
to
I'll
say.
link it below here for people to read. So, guys, I have to jump into another meeting. So let's just go Jana, Steve, and then Lisa. Just closing. I know we just scratched the surface. We'll have to dive in deeper in the future, but just give your kind of closing comments and anything you need people need to look at, websites or
Sure.
anything.
Okay, please come to my Substack because I have a lot of very in-depth articles. And it's again Jana Sutova, Sutoova at Substack. And one thing is for sure, this is not a conspiracy theory or some fringe thought or anything. This is reality. They are slipping in through education. through minute of silence laws, and now there are even in Supreme Court documents when it comes to abortion ban. So believe it or not, we never got to this. Of course, we have there's such a big subject. We would have to be here 3 hours explaining this, but it is a very reality that's difficult to believe. But once you read my articles and Lisa's articles, you will understand it's a reality we have to face. So educate yourself on the Noahide laws, what they are, because you're going to be hearing about them more and more. And sometimes they are masked under universal language. So when you hear peace and security, that's Noahide laws. When you hear universal morality, that's Noahide laws.
Everything's the opposite of what they say. Sustainability means killing you. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing that I'm trying to work on to help people on is if you take like someone like Tucker Carlson, he's being challenged by these ministers on a lot of issues, like in the case of Genesis 12:3, and it's not quoted right. So, and many others like it. So I try to really break that down, show what it actually does say, what it actually stands for, and what it means. And that's really the focus that I work on.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm sure you've read the George M. Lamsa translation from there.
Yes,
By the
I
way,
actually have it on my desk.
do you consider that to be accurate since you actually speak, you can read Aramaic for the most
Lamsa
part?
is actually it's a very good source. I studied Hebrew from three different directions, Hebrew University, Christian University, and even an Ulpan, and also from synagogue through biblical studies in a synagogue as well. So actually four ways. So
Okay.
nice rounded way of being able to really understand the language.
Okay, good. Lisa.
Yep. Thanks. I started researching this in October. It took, or maybe even the summer. It took me a long time to have the courage to talk about it. I've talked about a lot of difficult topics that are taboo, and this one was definitely the hardest for me. I had a difficult and emotional time to come to that point where, okay, but now I'm at the point where I think this is coming at a galloping rate. And they should call this the decapitation of Christians and everybody law, because it's the Noahide law does not encapsulate the horror that is going to unfold, and it is absolute horror. It is hiding in plain sight, and we're being shown very flashy things, and we're being shown to trust a president or what have you. This is coming, and I think we're going to see its ugly head in 2026. How many times do you get 06, 06, 06 in a date? Really? Not often. So I would ask people, I'm at lawyerlisa.substack.com. I write about the Noahide laws. They're allowed to deceive you, right? That's written as part of when the rabbis, they're allowed to deceive you about what they're about. There
Yes.
is supposed to be, we always knew that there was going to be one world religion. That's been mentioned many, many times. And the one world religion is not a binding together. So what we're seeing is the elimination of prisons, Trump going on about, capital punishment. We have that Georgia bill that was presented where they said, well, we're going to have decapitation because it's better for organ donation. Because if you get fried, you can't donate your organs. And if you get poisoned, you can't donate your organs. So let's go with decapitation. This is coming insidiously, and everybody's in place to carry it out. And we're being dangled all kinds of stories to look at. But in my view, this is the one thing that everybody should be looking at. Because whether you're Christian or not, or you think you can comply with a slavery regime, right? The surveillance state, where does it go to, right? Everything is set up, and they've been doing it for years because the timeline is 13 and a half, like 14 years. They're on their last, they missed the Messiah. They denied him. They said it's not him. And now they need to create him. And we know what this is. This is a system where you cannot disagree, and it's going to work with the surveillance state, and it's peace on earth because everybody's oppressed or dead.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
sorry. That's what I think.
so, my thought is that given what we saw, well, for me, it's been a lot longer than that, but let's say from 2020 onward, given that we saw that they just brainwashed the whole world to do the same unscientific things, follow the little lines on the floor, wear the face diapers, they poisoned most of the population with a biological and technological weapon of mass destruction. Nobody should take anything at face value. Now, I'm not telling you need to think everything's a conspiracy either, but you need to be thinking rationally, logically, using reason, your own individual discernment. There's a lot of different oligarchical factions at play in the world that are trying to control things in different ways, and this clearly is one of them. And I think that the truth is the most powerful weapon, and I think that I give you guys credit for telling the truth as you see it, as you're uncovering it. And I think nothing should surprise us anymore. I mean, we just had like the Epstein files being released, which we've only saw. I think like there's another 3 million they're not showing. They're not showing us what's really there. And I wonder if Trump's being blackmailed to do this war. But I mean, when you got people in power that are that sick and twisted, they're not normal people, whether they're Jewish, Christian, or whatever. They're not like normal people. They're just sick, twisted, psychopathic authoritarians. And so, criticizing the Noahide laws is not attacking Jewish people. That's why I think it's important Jews should speak out against them too. Look, if they were pushing a medieval, law from Catholicism from the Inquisition, probably most Catholics and most Christians would be saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this is crazy." And I think that people need to use reason and discernment when they're looking at this stuff. So I want to thank you guys again. We're going to be linking everything below. Thank you guys again. I appreciate all you guys are doing. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.